On a historic level, there's never been a group of men and women who have been more equal than African American women and African American men historically. I'll debate this with anybody in terms of uh, their human rights, their inalienable rights, their birthrights in terms of who dominates who and who is subservient to who. Um, if you talk, and this is, I'm not going to say that it was by our own design, it was more so we were forced into this type of position simply because of the economics and the social climate after slavery, post-slavery. So if you talk to any scholar or anybody who's kind of well versed on the time period after slavery till modern times, they should discuss with you the mental and spiritual mind frame of African American men at the time, because they'll tell you it was hurting. In a sense, they were free, but in a sense, they couldn't provide for their family in terms of how they wanted to. Jobs just weren't available. That's why you hear the stories about even after the ending of slavery, people still went back to it simply because, how else am I supposed to live? So as a result, damn near from the jump of post-slavery, black women had to work, alright? Whether it was, themselves still picking cotton, being a housekeeper, jobs such as that, right? We've seen it. Quite frankly, they probably even, the scholar will probably even tell you, like, yeah, the women were probably better providers than the men were simply in terms of economics, simply because she can go be a housekeeper, right? She can go pretty much raise somebody else's kid, but, the men were kind of forced to, menial labor. And you have to factor in the influx of foreigners into this country, right? The migration, the Europeans and all these other people. So the competition for work went up, right? Black men are still viewed to be at the bottom. So it was a tough, psychological battle for African American men post-slavery. Hence, women had to step up in the sense that, we both have to do this together. So since black women have always worked and provided for a family, I don't see a difference between, a woman back in the day working in a white household, taking care of their kids, cooking and cleaning for them, and coming home and caring for their children. Right? There's a whole bunch of literature and poetry that talks about this situation. I don't see the difference between that and now when I see a corporate woman or, a woman who's doing well for herself in terms of her ability to still raise a family, because our culture has always done that. No one else can say they can do that, but African American culture is the only one that can say, yep, we had to do this. And also I want to discuss how the whole concept of the black community being fucked up because of the men is complete bullshit, because we never had power. If Western white culture fails, they can put white men on trial simply because they've always held power and control. They've always had that control. You can talk about Middle Eastern men, Chinese men, you can talk about any other group, and if their society is to fail, you can very much put their men on trial because their men had unquestioned power. It's not challenged. But African American culture, post-slavery, has been that of equalness. No side has ever held this significant power like we want to act like, we do. We want to act like black males have all this power and we're not using it. I mean, what's the mark? Let's use some sort of stat that people like to use. Let's throw out, who's more educated, men or women. It's clear that black women are more educated than the men. So who has more power? Who has access to more resources? Let's figure. Who does? The women do. Right? But yet, I can go to the gym or the barbershop and, I can come across an older cat. Oh, what's going on? What you doing with yourself? How you giving back? And I'm challenged. And I love the challenge. They ask how you helping out your community, all that other stuff. And I don't have a problem with it. It's cool. Right? But a black woman can walk in, right? Because there's a hairdresser in my barbershop so she can walk in with the Gucci glasses on, the E-Class, you know, sunroof open, you know, just worrying about her stuff, and she's not challenged by other black women. She has access to all these resources, but she's not challenged. Why? We've never had this power, you know, over the well-being of our culture. We've never had that power. We've always been equal. I mean, it's pretty clear to me. So in modern times, I really don't want to hear about this dilemma that, you know, black women say in terms of, oh, how do I be professional and raise a family? Can it be done? My career this, my family this. It's been done for the past. We have a history of doing this. I'm not trying to say that, you know, certain women, black women, didn't have to work and they had to stay home and raise kids. Of course, there's women like that. But there's also a fair amount of black women who are working just as hard as the men, simply because our social conditions didn't allow for the men, even though we wanted to be the head of our community. We never enjoyed that privilege. It's a phantom. So I cringe every time I watch a panel or State of Black America or all these other discussion shows, and they worry about, oh, what's the black male doing? Oh, you know, you have the National Urban League and, you know, all their shit. Oh, black men, we have to step up. We have to do this. We have to do that. We have to do that. As if we dropped the ball. Yes, we're dropping the ball, but we had equal ownership. There's never been a time where black men were just doing so well in America, right, that we were holding our community up. There's always been a joint venture. So how can a joint venture fail and you only look at one side of the equation and not the other? So go back, you do your own history, and you read up the social conditions and all that other stuff. You read the poetry, read the literature, and you always hear the stories about the runaway father simply because he couldn't handle the fact that he can provide for his family. And you always hear the stories about, you know, the woman who was working in a white household. She took the train or the bus, you know, worked, you know what I mean, and she brought the scraps home and fed her family and all that other stuff, right? It's there. It's present. You just have to look for it. So anyways, tell me how you feel. Take it easy.